Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors suffer their fifth straight defeat, this one to the Denver Nuggets at Ball Arena, perhaps the most demoralizing of the five losses. Sorry I'm a bit late. We've just finished watching Steve's press conference where he was talking about his anger and disappointment with the officials there at the end. I'll get into that. And also went in at Brandon Pajemski in a way that you don't usually see with Steve for any player, let alone a young player. I found that very fascinating. We'll get into that as well. A few of your comments here after the Warriors, was it 119, 115 in the end? The late game offense, again, the issue. They led by 11 with just over 6 minutes left, looked in control of the game, and still led by 6 with just over 2 minutes to go. And again, the late game offense just completely stagnated. No real go-to options. I think Steph missed a three, Moody missed a three, Peyton missed a three, Kuminga got blocked twice, Wiggins turned the ball over there at the end after the Nuggets went in front. A few of your comments here. Daniel Hall says, if you told me before the season started that we'd lose to Denver at Denver without Draymond, I would think that totally makes sense. We had chances at the end, just couldn't convert. It stings more when you have hope. Yes, sorry, I've got an itchy nose. I totally agree with that. I think, as you said, before the season, this is probably what you define as a scheduled loss, I suppose. But the fact that you are leading by 11 with just over 6 minutes left, it's really no excuses to be losing that game. You just have to be a competent team. And that's exactly why Steve really had a go at Brandon there in the post game. He had a couple of plays midway through the fourth there, just as the Nuggets were mounting their comeback. He threw one to the top tier of the stands, trying to find Wiggins in the corner. It wasn't even close. I think someone in row 147 actually got it. And then I might have been 2 possessions later or something like that. He fouls Michael Porter Jr. on a 3-point attempt, which Porter actually made. He missed the free throw, so I'm not sure it actually hurt the Warriors necessarily, but they're just 2 dumb mistakes that you can't afford to make when all you have to do in that situation is play competently, play okay in that scenario. You don't have to play lights out. You don't have to go for the home run plays. You just need to play solid on both ends of the floor and you win that game. And you're feeling good about yourself because this is going to be a rather negative post-game live, you'd imagine, based on the result simply. But if you take away the final 5-6 minutes there, and specifically the last 2.5 minutes, the Warriors did a lot right in this game. There's a lot of positives to take out of it before the final 120, 150 seconds. And that's the disappointing thing, again, is that it's a win-loss industry and the Warriors lose this game, and therefore there's going to be some disappointment, and all the focus is going to be on the negatives down the stretch, when in fact the Warriors actually played pretty well. And that's the disappointing thing about it. They should have won that game. FTW Clans is up by 11 with 6 minutes left. Jokic was simply the difference. The few times he was on the bench, we absolutely dominated. As soon as he came back in, we would lose the lead we built. Happened at the end of the first half and the end of the game. I don't know about you guys, let me know in the chat, but it felt inevitable. It felt as if once we were up 11 and Denver started scoring a few points and cutting into the lead a little bit, even when we were up by 6 with 2.5 to go, I just felt sick. I honestly felt sick to my stomach. I was like, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel, and I think it just comes, maybe I went a bit early. I went a bit too early in the season on this being a different team to last season's. I think some of the wins, like I particularly look back at the one in Houston where they actually led by 30, surrendered that lead, had to go to overtime and still won the game. That was a game for me where I thought that actually shows some maturity and some growth in this team. The fact they were able to come back in overtime and win that game despite having lost the 30-point lead. The fact they were able to recover and still win, thought that was a really good sign. And I thought maybe that's a sign that this team is different to the one of last season, where last season's team lost so many games from double-digit leads. I think I went a bit too early on that because the last 5 games, these 5 losses, they've had 3 double-digit leads in second halves. You're talking about the 17-point lead against the Spurs, an 18-point lead against Brooklyn at home, and then an 11-point lead here with 6 minutes left against the Nuggets. It's a lot of the same stuff. I think I'm just scarred from last season, and so whenever the Warriors have any kind of lead that's less than 15 points with 5 or 6 minutes left, I just don't feel confident because this is what we've seen now for 12 to 18 month period. But anyway, the minutes FTW Clan, the minutes you talk about with Jokic, it is actually astonishing. The Nuggets were a plus 23 in Jokic's minutes. He played 40 minutes in this game, had 38 points, absolutely dominant. Actually started the game pretty slowly, but as it wore on, he was just dominant. Looney fouled out late. We can talk about some of Steve's rotation decisions. I actually, again, because we lost, Steve's going to cop some criticism, and there was some stuff to be critical about. I generally thought his rotations were actually all right. We'll get into it. A lot to take from this game, really. But the Warriors in the non-Jokic minutes were a plus 19 in 8 minutes when Jokic was off the floor. Like, the contrast between when that guy is playing and when he's not is just there. It's why I think he's going to win a 4th MVP, because there's no one on the planet that means more to their team than this guy. Like, he is just otherworldly good. I talked about it on the preview episode yesterday. Like, he's averaging nearly 30 points, 13 rebounds, nearly 11 assists, shooting over 50% from 3. Like, he's just a joke of a player, pardon the pun. Like, it's ridiculous. And the fact that, and that's why, like, I felt confident even, going into the 4th down 5, thought, well, they're just not good in the Jokic minutes, so we should actually be able to take a lead here. And we did, went on a 10-2 run straight away. Moses was huge. Moses had an 8-minute span there where he had 13 points, really burst to life after a bit of a shooting slump, it must be said, over recent games, and obviously only played less than 3 minutes the other night. So a good bounce back performance in the second half from him. A few other comments from you guys here. Berserk Monk, trades have to happen, man. We can't close games. We are currently worse than Harden plus role players. Yeah, that's a bit stiff to the Clippers. Norman Powell's a good, like, Norman Powell on this team would be the second scorer, wouldn't he, for the Warriors? Wiggins wasn't great in this one. He only took 7 shots. He keeps making his free throws, which is nice. Zubac's a better center than the Warriors have. So maybe that's a bit harsh on the Clippers. They're actually a pretty good team. They're going to get Kawhi back at some stage. But Young Wes says, JK's missed dunk was a huge thing. You need to go up stronger or make a better move. Great pass by great pass by Curry. Yeah, so just under 2 minutes left. The Warriors are still up 4, I think, at this point. And Steph kind of gets to the paint, draws 2. Kuminga cutting from the weak side on the baseline and goes up with it, and Murray just makes a nice play defensively and blocks it. Look, you can say he needs to go up stronger with it. I'd actually say maybe he should have gone reverse on that and actually made a reverse layup and kind of used the rim as protection there to make that. But it's very easy to say in hindsight. That's a play he finishes 9 times out of 10, you would say. So it was just a good play by Murray. And then the second one, Kuminga got blocked on in the final 40 seconds there. He had to go at Jokic. Jokic, I know he's not a good defender, but he actually can make defensive plays when it counts. Like, I've seen, that's not the first time where he's actually locked down a guy or got a clutch block where in the clutch moments. Like, he can actually make defensive plays. And so, yeah, again, you have that final 2.5 minutes, a few missed threes, Kuminga blocked twice. Peyton missed a 3, Moody missed a 3, Curry missed a 3, and then the Wiggins turnover where, I don't know, you don't feel great with, I don't know, how many game-winning shots has Andrew Wiggins made for the Warriors? Like, it's just not that many. Doesn't really feel great to me. Young Wes says, I didn't like GP2 shooting a 3 to tie the game. Yeah, I mean, a GP2-3 at any point of the game isn't an ideal one. I think more of the question mark has to be is why was he out there? The biggest gripe I had with Steve in this one is that Moses was on a heater. He had 13 points in 8 minutes in the second half, and then inexplicably he was pulled for Buddy Hield. Like, I would like to know why. For what reason was Buddy Hield didn't play well whatsoever, was 2 of 8 from the floor. Moses had it rolling. For what reason was Buddy Hield back in the game? Was it to give Moses a rest? I mean, the bloke barely plays. He played less than 3 minutes the other night. Moses, you could have played him 15 straight minutes in the second half there. I'm sure the bloke's chomping at the bit to get playing time. He doesn't need a rest. That's I don't know why Buddy Hield came back in the game there for Moses. Just, that was dumb. But anyway, FTW Clan, in a few months, looking back on the season, this losing streak is going to be the difference. Multiple losses being up double digits in the second half, barely losing to OKC with no Curry. Yeah, I spoke about it on yesterday's podcast. Like, the Western Conference, it's unforgiving. You lose 5 or 6 in a row here, And that could be the difference between whether you make the playoffs or not. And you look back at this stretch, and that's going to be what kills you. And there's no other way to say it. And the Warriors now, particularly when you've had opportunities in all 5 games, maybe the one against the Suns on Saturday is the only one you could say where, okay, they really outplayed us and had control of the game for the majority. Other than that, big leads over Brooklyn, San Antonio, now Denver, and led by 3 with 6 minutes left against OKC. And then, again, half-competent offense and win that game. It's really disappointing. But FTW Clan barely losing to Nuggets with no Draymond. Yeah, again, Warriors played well. Sai Krishna says Chris Boucher could be a great add along with Ochai Agbaji. I'm assuming you're talking about there with the Raptors. Boucher, I want a guy that's going to be part of a playoff rotation if the Warriors make it. That's it. The if has to come into things there, because after the 12-3 start, it's like, oh, yeah, cool, Warriors will make the playoffs. Just, we'll see what seed they end up with. And now it's all of a sudden very, very quickly turns to if they make the playoffs again. I just don't think Boucher is, I understand he makes sense as a stretch big. I just don't think that... I just don't think he's a playoff rotation piece. And the Warriors need legit upgrades for guys that you could look at and say, yeah, if they make the playoffs, he can play 25, 30 plus minutes. That's what they need. Don't think Chris Boucher is that guy. Trade would be Melton plus Kuminga and 2 second-round picks so that we can get Melton back next season for Boucher and Agbaji. I'm not giving up Kuminga for those 2 guys. I don't mind what Ochai's been doing for the Raptors, but no, not for me. Berserk Monk Buddy not being able to score 20 plus like he did in the first 6 games really sucks. I think we need a Dennis Schroeder to help the second unit and possibly close games next to Steph. Yeah, there's just no facilitators in that second. Let's talk about the rotation with Steph in this one, where he was the first guy subbed off in the first and third quarter. He played the first 5 minutes, I think, of the first and third quarter, subbed out, spent the next 5 minutes or so on the bench, then came back and was pretty much the backup point guard. He was the backup to himself kind of thing. Bit odd. You know what? I actually don't hate it. I really don't. If they're going to persist with Pods as the 2 guard next to Steph, then these Steph minutes, I actually, I don't hate it. Now, I think there has to be some situations where if Steph's got it going early, then you got to ride that and you don't pull him in those situations. But for the majority, I know it didn't work for Steph necessarily. He was 23 points, it was 24 points, took him 23 shots to get there. Not efficient whatsoever. My issue, I don't think that was an issue with the rotation minutes and him being in and out of the game. I think it was more so, I think he's struggling a bit with this knee issue. It just doesn't look the same to me. It's the first time in a while I've been a little bit worried about Steph, but at the same time, I think he's still Steph. I think he'll be fine, but it doesn't look great for him at the moment. And I think that knee stuff is really bothering him. But in terms of your buddy comment, yeah, he's just been poor recently now. And maybe we should have heeded the advice of some of these opposing fans who said, just get ready for the Buddy Hield experience to be great for the first 10 games and then he'll just fall off a cliff. And it's kind of been the case, unfortunately. NVX Hunter, GP2 is wide open though. If he can't hit that, I don't know what he really does for us because he ain't doing much defensively in the end there either. Definitely a good trade piece. Agree with that. I'd honestly be surprised if Gary Payton II is on the team at the end of by the closure of the February 6th trade deadline. He's making $9.1 million. He's shooting, before this game, I think he went 1 or 2 today. He made 1 in the second half, which I was like, okay, cool. Because when they go in, it's just pretty rare. He's shooting 17.6% from 3 this season, which you just can't, you can't live with that. You can't play a guy for more than 12 minutes a game when he's shooting that from 3 and he doesn't really bring anything else to the table. I just don't think he's been elite defensively this season. There's not many. He makes the odd play here and there where it's yep, great play. I'm just, maybe he's lost something athletically. He was all right today. I thought he was he had 11 points, which must be a season high or something like that. Cut nicely to the rim a few times. I don't know. Young Wes, honestly, I think we need a blockbuster trade. Sire says that leaves room for a Vucevic trade. So if you're talking about the Boucher and Agbaji one, then what are you trading for Vucevic? Young Wes says, what do you think in regards to the blockbuster trade? I just don't know who it is. Like, who's the blockbuster trade? Because the blockbuster trade has to include Wiggins, and Wiggins is still playing well. And I'm just, as I said on the episode yesterday, I'm just not trading Wiggins for Jimmy Butler or Brandon Ingram. They just don't move the needle for me enough, I don't think. Obviously depends on what else you got to give up, but like just simply the salary perspective of it, like you have to get, Jimmy Butler's making like 47 million or something. Like that's another 20 million on top of Wiggins you have to come up with. Ingram's at what, like 35? Wiggins and Melton, like if the Pelicans are just packing it in, which they probably are, they're like 4 and 160 or something. Like their record's horrific in the state of the West. I don't think they're getting back into it. Could you get away with Wiggins? Like, would they take on Melton and just say, okay, Wiggins and Melton and picks for Ingram? I don't have an issue with Ingram, the player on the Warriors. I have more so paying him a max contract, which is what he's going to want. That's my issue. So I don't see where the blockbuster trade is. I think it's more so like if you can do Melton and GP2 in a couple of seconds for Vucevic, that's kind of my trade. I'm really interested here because the state of the West, like I don't think you can wait. I don't think you can wait till the February 6th trade deadline. I think the Warriors could be cooked by that point if they wait. Like, and that's usually you see the moves happen in the last couple of days before the deadline. They can't do that. They've got this Melton piece sitting there. You know he's not coming back this season. You got to go and make a move now. Now, you can't do it now. He's trade eligible December 15. To me, that's a huge date because from that point, I could, as an Australian, most of the trade stuff happens for me overnight. Once December 15 hits, I feel like I'm going to wake up every morning and I could see a trade happen from the Warriors because it probably needs to be urgent, particularly when Chicago with Vucevic, they're almost in a similar situation where it's like, hang on, if we keep these guys for too long, then we're actually going to be too good to be like a really bad team that can try and get in the mix for the number 1 overall pick. So I don't know. FTW Clan, do you think the new rotation for Steph made him go ice cold in the second? I didn't mind it because it just eliminates the Pat Spencer minutes. And I just didn't want to. If you just look at the rotation where it was 10 guys, obviously no Draymond, so that would have been an 11th, but no Draymond, no Lindy Waters, so Lindy Waters, Pat Spencer, see you later. Good decision making, Steve Kerr. Everyone could see that. So I actually thought, and if you look at the minute dispersions, let me just have a look here. Wiggins plays 31, Kuminga 29. I know the Kuminga minutes in the fourth weren't good, but I would have actually he played well in the first 3 quarters. I would have almost liked to see him play more than that. Loon played 24 and a half, started to try and guard Jokic, ended up fouling out late. Pods played 24 and a half, Steph 30, just over 34, Healed 21 and a half, TJD 21 and a half, Slow-Mo 19, Moody 20, Peyton 15. You know what? That minute dispersion is pretty good. Like the only thing I'd say is, again, why is Buddy playing more than Moses when Moses clearly has it rolling better than Buddy? Like that should have been a difference there. But other than that, that's a pretty good minute dispersion, I think. But in terms of the Steph's thing specifically, I think you need to see more data. You need to see how it goes over a 4 or 5 game span before you can really work out whether or not it's actually affecting him and his efficiency and stuff like that. Again, as I said before, if he's hot, then that's a scenario where you have to keep him on the floor and change things up. There's no reason why you can't do it with Pods. Like I thought he was going to do it with Pods, where you start him for the first 5 minutes and you take him out and bring him back. And then Steph plays his normal minutes where he's like first 9 or 10 minutes, then rests like 7, 8 minutes and then comes back to close the second quarter and then the same in the second half. That's what I thought he was going to do, but he does it with Steph instead. I don't know. Thandeka, we're now 5th from 12-3 to 12-8. Yeah, as I said, the West is unforgiving. Sai says, honestly speaking, this season is a done deal unless we have a stretch big in the starting unit and a solid 3-and-D guy like Melton in the second unit to get through to the playoffs. That's not happening this season. They have the pieces where you could actually go and get both. Like, they have all their draft assets. The only thing is, like, would you want to make that much change to the team, for starters? And secondly, would you want to give up too many assets to make it happen if it's not actually bringing in like a star in return? Because do you really want to trade for a couple of very, very good role players who fit the system, but then like not have the optionality and the flexibility to go and get another star player like next off season or something like that? I suppose that's the question. Thendex says Buddy needs to wake up. Yep, would be ideal. He's struggling. We play the Rockets next. Yeah, a bit weird now because we play the Rockets on Thursday at Chase Center, but now we also play them in the quarterfinals of the NBA Cup now in Houston, which is another hugely disappointing thing because if we win that game, that means we get a home NBA Cup quarterfinal. You got to remember this counts as part of your 82-game schedule. So now it's just an extra road game in there, which means the other one, I think, well, if they lose, then the other one, I think, like their makeup game would have to be at home. So it still evens out at 41 and 41. But otherwise, the semifinal in Vegas also counts as a regular season game. So we'll wait and see. But they now play the Rockets on Thursday. And then I think it's next Tuesday, the NBA Cup quarterfinals. Young West says, do you think we should try to trade for Zion or Embiid? I see those guys being traded sometime. Embiid clearly doesn't like Philadelphia and Zion needs to get out of New Orleans. You can't trust their bodies, can you? Like, I think I'd probably take the gamble on Zion first and just hope to hell that you could get his diet right first and foremost. And then in terms of his hamstrings and stuff like that, that Celebrini could get them right. Embiid is clearly the better player than Zion, but he's also much older, more miles on the legs, probably more of an injury history. I don't want to, I don't want to, and I don't see Philly doing that. I could see the Pelicans just having enough of Zion and being like, yeah, no, we're done with this, particularly if they blow it up. But they also, why would they blow it up? They just traded a couple of first round picks to DeJounte Murray. So I don't know. I feel like they're going to roll. Ingram's probably going to go, but they're probably going to roll ahead with like Zion, Murray, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, all these guys. Sandecker kind of agrees Zion and Embiid are not healthy, not worth trading our future for them, and it will also hurt our salary cap. Yeah, you got to commit long-term money to those guys. FTW Clan, don't want to be negative, but I have little hope we beat the Rockets next game. Yes, although like we match up well with I think we've won like 14 games in a row in front against the Rockets, which I know Houston have been terrible for most of that period. Now they're actually good. The Nuggets, that's the Warriors' 8th straight loss against Denver, and now like 12 of 13 regular season games. I don't know why I just don't load up on Jokic over points, rebounds, assists every time he plays the Warriors. Just should be doing it. Berserk Mark, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like Wiggins and Kuminga don't mesh well. When one of them gets going, the other is cold. Yeah, there was a stretch last season where they were reasonably good together. The other factor I kind of want to mention here is I feel like Kuminga plays well without Draymond. Like when you can start him at the 4 and there's not as much two-man action between Steph and Draymond where Kuminga's just sitting on the perimeter. Like that first half, the kind of two-man game between Steph and JK was really good, like really good. And Steve talked about going back to the last game after the loss against Phoenix where he said, like, can we get Kuminga playing more with the starting lineup? And I do think there's something there with the Steph and JK combination because theoretically it should. You've got the greatest shooter of all time and a guy who is really good going to the basket, obviously. So that should work well. And I don't know. We saw like Kuminga took a leap last season when Draymond got suspended and they started him and all of a sudden he took off and was great over the second half of the season. And so maybe a little Draymond absence here could work well for Kuminga. It's also got to equate to wins. That's the issue. Like you can't be losing games at the same time. So I don't know. The end of the game was disappointing for Kuminga because it didn't ruin, but it took something off what was an excellent first 3 quarters. Thought he should have played more. Sai says if salary matching is a thing, then add Moody and take off 1 first round pick. With that we will have Steph, Agbaji, Wiggins, Dre, Vucevic, bench of Kyle Anderson, Chris Boucher, Pods, Buddy, Lindy, Waters, TJD. Mm. It's very complicated when you're talking about bringing in 3 guys. It's very complicated. I don't think Golden State are going to go out and bring in 3 players mid-season. They don't work like that. They barely ever make mid-season trades. Barely ever make mid-season trades. Particularly big ones where you're adding like 3 rotation pieces and you've got 2 starters there. So I just don't think that will happen. I don't hate it though. I like you guys getting these ideas out and about, and I'm happy to talk about them. FTW Clan says, thoughts on Brown trying to call timeout at the very end with no timeouts left? Yes. So I needed to get to this. Steve was fuming, absolutely fuming at the final buzzer there. He was, and again, in the post game, equally. Now, he did kind of say that, it wasn't the reason we lost the game, our offense down the stretch, blah, blah, blah. But he basically said everyone in the stadium saw that he was trying to take a timeout, except for the 3 people who've got to make the call. And so for those of you that haven't watched the game or tuning into this, basically Warriors are down 4. There's a missed 3. Ball comes loose. Christian Brown dives on the ball, does very well to dive on the ball, secure the ball. He's then on the ground and he's trying to call a timeout that the Nuggets don't have. The Nuggets don't have. The refs do not call that. So basically what should have happened is the Nuggets should have been charged a technical foul. You cannot call a timeout when you don't have one. That is a technical foul. Warriors go to the free throw line. Steph goes to the free throw line. 91% chance he makes it. And the Warriors are down 3. And I think if they'd called the technical, they ultimately called a jump ball. There was 1.9 seconds left. I think if they'd called the technical, it would have happened earlier. So the Warriors might have had 3 or 4 seconds to try and tie the game in that scenario. It's unlikely they tie it and get to overtime, but it's a possibility. It's a possibility. A lot of things would have had to happen. And the first of those didn't, in terms of the refs calling a technical foul for the Nuggets on them calling a timeout that they didn't have. I do it in 2K a lot, where I call timeouts in the last couple of minutes, exhaust them all, and then you try and call another one, and no, technical foul the other team, and you lose possession as well. Disappointing. Sai Krishna, that was the comment you just had. Young Wes, will we win a game in December? It's a tough schedule. You've got to win a game in December. I don't think we're going to go like the Wizards and go no win November. Dan Decker, what should be our closing lineup? I think we are rotating too much. I agree. I agree. I don't know why Buddy Hield was in the game there late fourth quarter. The issue is there's just so many guys you could play. You just got to ride the hot hand. So I would have just said the last 5 or 6 minutes. I know there's some possessions where you want to play offense, defense a little bit, but I think down the stretch, you probably would have had. I think he got it largely right. I think it should have been Steph, Moody, Wiggins, Kuminga, Loon. And then once Loon found out, I know a lot of people heavily critical of not going back to TJD. He went to Kyle Anderson at the 5. Slow-Mo did have some impact against Jokic in the playoffs last season when he was with the Timberwolves in that Western Conference semifinals. It was best of 7. It did go 7. Fantastic series. Slow-Mo had some impact on Jokic there defensively, so I can see why he did it. He's also a veteran, experienced player, been in that situation a lot as opposed to TJD. So I'm actually not as critical of that decision as a lot of people on social media is like, okay, Kuminga at the 4, Slow-Mo at the 5. How the hell do you expect to get stops? Yeah, that's a part of it. I don't know. Judgment call. I don't think that's egregious. Again, I said it a few episodes ago. I'm not going to get on Steve for decisions that you could argue either way about. If you make to me, Buddy Hield playing in the 4th when he just didn't have any impact on the game whatsoever, and Moses is absolutely killing it. That's an egregious call. That's an egregious rotation decision for Buddy Hield to come back into that game. Just is. I don't think there's any argument to be made for that. But when there's clearly not, I think he has a reasonable argument that Kyle Anderson closes that game. What's the long-term closing lineup? There just isn't one. It's just who's playing well. I think ideally it's probably Steph, someone, would definitely be Melton if he was available. Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond. I think it is. I don't know, but there's going to be plenty of times Kaminga's not in there. And really the only three solidified ones are Steph, Wiggins, and Draymond. Sai says, else we can take the Nets route and go with Dorian Finney-Smith, Day'Ron Sharpe, Dennis Schroeder. Clippers are eyeing for Day'Ron. Yeah, Day'Ron Sharpe, he's interesting. He's still a young player. I don't think he's much of an upgrade necessarily on Looney and TJD. That's probably more a situation of where if you're trading for one of those guys, one of those other guys like Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, Schroeder, and you needed Looney's salary to be included for some reason, then you try and bring Day'Ron Sharpe back to because obviously the Warriors don't have too much center depth. So if you're trading Looney, you've got to get a center back, and that's where maybe Day'Ron Sharpe becomes an option. Game Ref 2P. Refs are great. Refs had to cover the spread. I think they said FanDuel during the game. Young West says the spread was Warriors plus 3.5. I think I'm pretty sure FanDuel during the game said it was 5.5 or 4.5. I think so. I think the Warriors covered, but that doesn't really help you when. I think the Warriors covered, but that doesn't help you. Like we're just talking about winning and losing the game, unless you bet on the Warriors at the plus line. But that's up to you guys. Sai Christian says, and by the way, things are looking with TJD. We need a center trade ASAP. He needs at least 2 seasons more to be a solid backup center. Looney's scoring doesn't cut us. Yes, I agree. The TJD I saw on Twitter the other day, was it Nico someone? I'm not going to look it up now, but whoever it was on Twitter said that like TJD was 40% on layups this season, which certainly, I don't know why I'm laughing. It's goddamn awful. It is awful. But it certainly matches the eye test. I tell you, this guy's finishing around the rim. Even the one today that I think he may have got bailed out on, where he had Strawther in the post, made a nice spin move, got to the rim, and then blew a layup. What are you doing? Then got the putback, put it up, and they called a goaltend on Peyton Watson that I'm not exactly sure it was a goaltend. He got bailed out, I think, on it. Can this guy actually make shots at the rim that aren't dunks? Please. Had a nice play defensively, got a steal, ran the length of the floor, slammed it down early fourth quarter. Great. He can make dunks. Anyone that can get above the rim can make dunks. I could if I could jump that high. But can this guy make something around the rim, please? It's awful. It really is not good. It's like the biggest thing that's letting him down at the moment. This guy cannot capitalize. And if you're going to play for the Warriors where Steph Curry gets so much defensive attention thrown on him and you're just rolling to the rim, and really most of the time the help defense is like wings or guards coming over from the perimeter to help out, you've got to be finishing over those guys. You're 6'9" with elite athletes. You've got to be finishing these plays. Sorry, just my minor rant, but it's frustrating. And I saw that stat the other day. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right, because I'm watching this and all these layups and stuff he's missing. Anyway, GSW, TJD ain't hitting nothing off an offensive rebound. Yeah. Sai Krishna, what's your gut feel? Will Kuminga and Moody be traded by the deadline? Kuminga, I think, is a 50-50. I think Kuminga, it almost depends on how he plays in the next. If Kuminga gets traded, I don't think it'll happen until around the deadline. Because I think there's a lot of do I want to say political stuff, I suppose, with JK, where it's like there's probably a lot of push and pull between Steve, the front office, Joe Lacober's ownership, just because JK is so talented that's not going to be a decision they take lightly. That's not going to be a decision they take lightly. So if that happens, I think it's ultimately going to come down to the last 24 hours before the trade deadline, and do they decide, yes, we want to keep this guy, and as a result, we're willing to pay him big bucks in restricted free agency, or do we really not want to pay this guy, and therefore you got to find a trade for him probably. So I think that's what it's going to come down to. Moody, I don't think will be traded. I think there's still a spot here. I think he's top 10 in the rotation. He plays 20 minutes tonight. I think there's a chance that he does play 18 to 20 minutes a game. I think he can still carve out a role. I know I'm saying that on the back of over 3 years now where he hasn't been able to consistently do that, but I still think there's an opportunity for him. He's also on a poison pill contract, and that's the main reason why I say I don't think he'll get traded. It's too difficult, I think. Just back to the Kuminga thing, though, that doesn't mean they won't make a trade before. I think if Kuminga gets traded, it'll be just before the deadline. That doesn't mean they can't make another trade before that. Again, December 15 rolls around, call up the Chicago Bulls, Here's D'Anthony Melton. Here's Gary Payton II. Here's a couple of seconds. Give us Vucevic. Make it happen. Could be done in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. Make it happen. GSW, def a bailout. Thought the same thing when I saw it. Looked like it wasn't hitting rim. Yeah, that was in regard to the Peyton Watson goaltend on TJD. I just don't even think the ball got to its highest point. I thought it was a legal block, but anyway. Young Wes, was Bogut the best center we had in the Curry era? I think so. GSW says Boogie. I mean, Boogie was okay for half a season consistently. I actually think we might be discrediting Loon in that. If you're saying the best center in, I know Bogut was excellent. We're not putting Zaza Pachulia in there. Boogie was definitely obviously the highest caliber player, but in terms of like impact on the Warriors, I don't think he's necessarily there. There's just not too many floating about, is there? There's not. Yeah, I think we're probably discrediting Loon. I think some of the stuff he's done, like 2022 playoffs, 2023 playoffs, like I'll forever remember what he did to Sabonis in that first round series. That was remarkable. He just absolutely killed Sabonis in that series. So yeah, just not enough, not enough quality centers on the Warriors. And I know that's kind of goes down to the way they play and what they ask for their centers. But can we just change? Steph's 36. You've got Kuminga there now. Kuminga, I think, needs a floor spacing 5 next to him. We haven't really seen him have that. I just think it could unlock so many things. It's what I always said about marketing as well, going back to the offseason. Thendex says we missed so many wide open layups. How about that Steph one in the third quarter where he just runs the length of the floor and just gets the easiest layup of his life? And it was almost as if he was surprised by how open he was and he missed the layup I would have made. I would have made that layup. Anyway, so would most of you. Berserk Monk, TJD and Draymond both constantly smoke layups. Yeah, TJD is awful. And Draymond might be a better 3-point shooter than he is a 2-point scorer, if that makes sense. Like, he might actually be more efficient beyond the arc. It's weird. Sai Krishna, with Steph's knee tendonitis and the probability of that flaring up during heavy minutes, I secretly hope we wrap up the season, let Dre and Steph rest, and look for a fitting trade during the offseason. I mean, we're still 12-8. We're still 5th in the West. Let's talks of packing up the season. Let's just chill on that. Let's just still have a bit of a crack, I think. It says, and kick it off, hopefully not in Hawaii this time. It's not worry about next off season yet. Let's just keep rolling around. Steph will be 37 next year. It's now or never. Yep, I agree with that. JSW Looney 2022 championship. Those 20 rebound games are beautiful. Yep. Sai says, would love to see them compete like a champion team in the playoffs. Not with this team, man. That Sacramento playing game last year still gives me nightmares. I'm not out on the team. I'm not out. The effort's there. Like, I can't fault the effort. The West is, like, you still look around, it's incredibly competitive. There's no doubt about that. But it's also, like, there's not that many teams that scare me. So the Thunder are the best team, and we nearly beat them the other day without Steph. Albeit they were missing Chet, and then Jalen Williams didn't play in the second half. Denver today, with no Draymond, and we nearly beat them on their home floor, and they are fully healthy. Like, really, they've got their starting lineup out there. They're fully healthy. We should have beaten them without Draymond. So there's not many teams. Like, Houston are playing well. Cool. I don't really care. They're not really bothering me. If we started a 7-round playoff series with the Rockets tomorrow, I think the Warriors are a chance. Timberwolves have got some issues. Mavs, the Clay stuff's not good for him at the moment. Now, Mavs have won 9 out of 10, but the Clay stuff's not good. So there's still some issues there. Like, there's just not that the West, there are a lot of good teams. There's just not many great teams. And therefore, the Warriors just have to get slightly better and they could all of a sudden be in a Western Conference Finals. I don't know. Like, I think there's a chance. King Rose says we're 7th seed now. Are we? Okay, that doesn't surprise me. We're 12-8. But I think someone before said we were 5th, so I was just going off that. I apologize. Thandecker, Clay was crap, to be fair, in that Kings game. Clay is not being good the whole season. He's shooting, what's he shooting from the floor now? I don't want to talk too much about Clay. I love Clay. He's my favorite player of all time, but I don't think the Warriors are missing Clay too much. And there's going to be some genuine question marks on whether he should be starting with the Mavericks. Let me put it this way. I don't think Klay Thompson will be on the Dallas Mavericks at the end of this 3-year contract. Let me put it that way. I think there's a genuine chance he's not on the Mavericks. FTW Clans, Berserk Monk says Kings actually beat the Rockets today. Yes, I did see that. Good win for them. But again, Sacramento, not really going too well for them. FTW Clan, it was nice being on top of the West while it lasted, but our focus should be finishing top 6 at least. Yeah, if you can get top 6 and avoid the play-in tournament, then that's a decent result. And again, there's not that many teams in the West that really scare me. Like if you're going to play the Thunder, then that's probably scary, but they're going to be the 1 seed, so they're probably going to play the 8 seed, or they'll be the 2 seed and they play against the 7 seed. So if you finish top 6, you should avoid the Thunder first round. Sai says, not overreacting, just frustrated with Kerr, his rotations. The West is packed, and I agree we beating teams. I'm talking about 7-game playoff series. Even if we can get to one, I'll be rooting for Steph. Yeah. Let's hope we can make the playoffs first and foremost. And then, as I keep saying, the West is competitive, but there's not that many dominant teams. Thandeka, anyone can slip up in the West. We still have a chance. We're 20 games in. It's literally not a quarter of the way through the season. Like, I think all this doom and gloom, again, I like to try and be realistic about it and think that, you're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are. So when the Warriors were 12-3, top of the West, they're probably not the best team in the West, like that form suggested. Now they've lost 5 straight. It's all doom and gloom. I don't think they're as bad as 5 straight losses makes it seem. Like they could have easily won 4 of these games. They could be 4-1 in this stretch. Just some disappointing things here and there, blowing leads. It is what it is. I'm going to finish this up here in a second. Been going for nearly 42 minutes, but I like your guys' comments here. No matter what, but these are genuine concerns, mate. Yep. There's issues. There's issues with the Warriors, no doubt. And they need to make a trade. They do. I feel like if we can get a top 3 seed, we have a chance, but it's highly unlikely. Yeah, I don't think. Obviously, home court advantage, I suppose, is when you say top 3, you probably mean top 4. Getting home court advantage in the first round is helpful. GSW, what was Kerr upset about at the end of the game? I already spoke about it, but basically there was a play. Christian Brown had the ball, tried to call a timeout that the Nuggets didn't have. Should have been a technical foul to the Warriors. Steph goes to the free throw line, makes it. Warriors probably have 3 or 4 seconds left to try and tie the game with a 3. Instead, they don't call the technical foul. They instead call a jump ball, and there's 1.9 seconds left, and the game's over. So Kerr was very frustrated about them not calling or not realizing that Christian Brown was trying to get a timeout. So Houston, Minnesota, Houston, Memphis, Minnesota, Indiana. That's the next 7, isn't it? Yeah, our next 7 games in chronological order. How many are the Warriors winning? Yes, you've just asked that. Any guesses on our record? Which game are you looking forward to? Well, it's interesting you've got like 3 against the Timberwolves, 2 against Houston. I actually have, guessing the record at this point in the Western Conference is actually so difficult. The Warriors could go 6-1 in that stretch. I wouldn't be surprised. They could also just lose every game, and I wouldn't be surprised. Thandeka says 6-1. Who's the loss there, Thandeka? Which game are you losing? I think what would I want as a fan? What should we realistically be aiming for? I think you split the Rockets games. I think you go 2-1 against Minnesota. And is the Indiana game, is that in Indy or at Golden State? I forget. Can someone remind me where the game against the Pacers is? GSW says 5-2. Golden State. It's at Golden State. So they should be winning that one. Memphis game's big. They could actually go 5-2 if they beat Memphis. Could be 4. Ideally 5-2. Should be 4-3. If they're less than 500, if they're 3-4 or worse, not great, not good at all. 4-3 is probably if there was a market up for it, I think 4-3 would be the favorite. Let's put it that way, and then 5-2 and 3-4. Thandeka says the second Rockets game is the Cup quarterfinals. That I don't really care. I'm just about regular season record. Sai says that's what I'm hoping for. 5-2 would put us in a good place. That would make us 17-10. Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. Like if you said at the start of the season we're 17-10 after 27 games, everyone would take that. I think everyone would take 12-8 after 20 games. But it's just because of how it's worked out with being 12-3 and now losing 5 straight. It's a bit of doom and gloom at the moment. Just going back to King Rose, your question, sorry. What did you think of that charge mid-fourth that was overturned to a block? Big play in the end. Right call, I think. As soon as I saw it, as soon as Jokic barreled in to Kuminga, and then I actually didn't see who it was, and then Kuminga got up. As soon as I saw it was Kuminga, I was like, huh? Like, Kuminga doesn't take charges. That's kind of rare, especially on Jokic. And so as soon as Mike Malone challenged it, I was like, I don't really like this because Kuminga just doesn't draw charges ever. And it's also on Jokic. so as soon as I went to chat, I was like, I'm not confident on this whatsoever. And I think, yeah, he was still moving. I think it's the right call. All righty, guys. I'm going to finish it up there. There's plenty more to talk about. Warriors play, as we spoke about, the Rockets on Thursday. I've actually got a fair bit on tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll get a podcast up. Probably unlikely, but I'll definitely be back for a post-game live following that Rockets game on Thursday. Thank you very much to those of you that have commented. King Rose says, yeah, I was actually in the arena and it looked like a charge. Have you seen the replay of it? Upset with it. Alrighty. Thank you very much, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Again, thank you very much to all of you guys that have commented. If you're watching it on replay, thanks for tuning in. Or if you're listening via the podcast feed, this will be up shortly. Again, I'll be back for a post-game live after the Rockets game. Let's hope, fingers crossed, the Warriors can break this losing streak because it is becoming more and more disastrous and sliding them further and further down the standings. Thanks once again. Hope you guys continue to enjoy your week.